morning, my little dumpster fire babies. How is everyone doing this morning? I hope that your day is off to a wonderful, fantastic start. If this is your first time here, hi, my name is Carrington. I would love for you to join the dumpster fire baby family. You can do that by hitting the subscribe button, clicking the little bell so you're notified of all my future uploads. Don't worry, book stuff is not the only thing that I do. I just kind of throw that in here and there. I am mostly a makeup review channel, so definitely just wanted to let you know that. So if you are interested in both things, then definitely go ahead, hit that subscribe button, click the little bell. Not your first time here, hi, welcome back. How's the family? Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy. Don't forget to follow me over on Instagram. And let's go ahead and let's get into today's exciting video, which is ranking the last 5 books I read from my least favorite to my most favorite. Now, I kind of like a whole slew of things. I really do like psychological thrillers or like things that are just like really wild and out there. I like true stories. Like right now I got like a whole bunch of new about like the Holocaust, Auschwitz, things like that. So I've been reading those. I do like some fantasy fairy tales, things like that. Stephen King is a huge one. So I'm not really a super picky reader. I'll read just about anything, and I do. I don't get a ton of time to read all the time. Sometimes I'm just so busy with work, house stuff, things like that I just don't have all the time in the world. So let's go ahead and let's dive on into the 5 books I read, what I think of them from my least favorite to my most favorite. Okay. In last place, I'm just going to say if this is not the book for you, trigger warning, there's some really just just the most fucked up stuff in the whole entire world. Literally the most fucked up stuff in the whole entire world. Then skip through this part. I'm not sure. I'll try to leave the timestamps on when I start with the next book down below. This is the book Womb by Duncan, Ralston. If you like just reading just like the most messed up stuff that you could think of, this will be a book for you. You can get this on Amazon. Honestly, it is such an easy read. It's, 129 pages. The font is pretty good sized. The pages aren't like super long or anything. It's such a quick read. I was able to read this in like 2 days. So easy to read. Except for the content, I was a little bit like, what is going on? So this starts off with a gentleman who always goes to the same motel room. It's the motel room that his mom died in, and he keeps coming back here. And in this motel room, he keeps asking for escorts to come because it's not illegal wherever it is that he is in this book, right? He keeps calling in for these escorts. He asks for very specific escorts, and they send them to his room. Now, this book is fully focused on just one of the escorts who goes by the name of Angel. And so basically he has her, come over to his room, but his intention is not to sleep with her. Nope. It's much more than that. It is something that I was not even prepared for as to why he wanted her there. But anyways, so she gets there and he just has her set on the bed and he starts telling her stories with people with different names and different characters are in each story, and each character, the more each story is just more and more and more messed up. I will give one example. I will give the first example. It's in the book. He talks about how in a motel room him and his girlfriend stayed in this because they were in love. Then they started doing really hard drugs, and she was taking money, she was taking the drugs and not paying the drug dealer. So the drug dealer came by and he walked in and found them sleeping together, and he just talks about how she has to do this because she has to pay back the money, and he is livid, but he loves her so much that he doesn't want to just walk out and leave. And so the drug dealer was like, well, I need you to get on a plane and smuggle, it was 100, 200 bags of this drug in your body cavity. So that's what I'm going to need you to do. And so he's like, I'll do this for her. Anyways, some of the craziest stuff happens. Anyways, she ends up dying, and it's like a whole deal, and that like sets him off as well. And there's just like every story just gets more and more insane, and it's like so graphically detailed, because like he tries to shove all the bags up in his cavity, and then he's like, oh no, I can't do this anymore, I'm getting sick. And then like the drug dealer comes in and says, no, you got to keep doing this. Or maybe he had to swallow them. It was something like that. He was doing one or the other. And like it just goes into just like such details that it was like I probably didn't need to know those details. Like I probably could have figured out what was happening without all the intricate details. This gives you the intricate details. So if you are one where you like books like that and you want to know what the ending is, which is even more messed up than I could have ever have imagined, the reason why he actually was wanting these escorts. And it was not to murder them either. It was not. It was not to murder them. It was not to sleep with them. I can't even begin to tell you just how insane this book was. It was just like, why? Why was this written? Why? But like at the same time, I was like, it was beautifully written. Like you have all these graphic details in it, right? But at the same time, I think the author really did a really good job of like writing it. Like his writing style was really beautiful. It was really cohesive. It all kind of went together. Like, he incorporated like present to the past and like things like that. So I think it was beautifully written. It's just one of those like wow factors. So if you're into that, you might like that. I will link all these books down below, but if not, you won't like that. Next up, none of the other books are quite like that. Just let me say that. They're not quite like that. This next one is from Lucy Foley. This is The Guest List. This was actually a really good book. So this is about this girl who is rich and has a newspaper company, a fashion magazine company, right? She owns it, and it's one of the top selling, fashion magazines, who's getting ready to marry like this TV documentary series man who's so good looking. They're both so good looking. And they're having their wedding on like this deserted island. This island once belonged to like a native group, and then a lot of them did die, and then the rest left because they said that they were being haunted, by those people. So anyways, in this book, it really kind of focuses, so people do come in for the wedding, but the ones that are in the wedding, like we have like the bride, the plus ones, the best man, the wedding planner, bridesmaids, all of that are staying at like this giant castle that's on this island. And then the wedding planner actually still lives on this island with her husband, even though nobody else lives on this island. But she still stays there, and they like rent out the island to like things like weddings, things like that. So you are basically told right on the back, right, who the suspects are. So you have the bride, the plus one, the best man, the bridesmaid, and the wedding planner. So as you're kind of going through this book, you kind of start finding out who was murdered and why they were murdered. But at the same time, it also tells you why those 5 suspects would be the murderer, right? So it kind of goes through all of that. Now, the one thing is I've kind of figured out really early on, one of the suspects, I was like, why are they listing this? Because it tells, each chapter is from the point of view of somebody, and from like a couple days before the wedding, a day before the wedding, hours before the wedding, at the wedding, right? So it's like each chapter, like right here, right? The plus one. So it's all about like her perspective from that day. And then you've got the bride, and it's all about her perspective for, that time period that we're talking about. And then there's one that's just like, why is this person even a suspect? So then when you're sitting there like, okay, why, if you're sitting here questioning why this person is a suspect and you literally have no idea because they've never met before this, that's got to be the person, right? Like that's got to be the person. And it's true. And then it was just kind of, I think it was just more like I kept reading it because just like all of the information that was being spilled out from everybody, from the best man, the plus one, the bridesmaid, the bride, the wedding plan, like everything that's just kind of being like pushed into like, telling their story, you kind of start seeing like a terrible side to everybody else in the story, like how awful everybody is. But then you're just kind of like, okay, so I know this person did it, but like why? And then, you learn more about why, and it's just, it kind of does throw you for a loop. It does for a loop, but I kind of was disappointed that I knew who it was, right? I just wanted to figure out why. But I did like the rest of it. I really liked figuring out how it all came together, how each person's experience with this one person made them a suspect, and like some of the reasons why they're so tied together. I was like, girl, I wouldn't blame you. Like I wouldn't blame you. I would not blame you for wanting to commit a murder. Like, like. So next up in third place is going to be this is The Child of Auschwitz. This was a really good book. So this is based on a true story. She actually did a lot of writing of the story, and then this author got a hold of it and really turned it into the book for her. So this is about Ava, who is I'm sorry if you hear my dogs, who is Jewish, and then she's married, and she gets whisked away to Auschwitz, and she's like living her life there. She's trying desperately to find her family, find out what happened to them, while also at the same time trying to stay alive in Auschwitz. So later on during the book, I'm sure as you guys all know from like history classes and things like that, towards the very end, a lot of Jews did not make it. And usually whoever did and was able to be rescued were like skin and bones, very, very sick, unhealthy. So towards the end of her stay, she falls pregnant. And she knows that she is going to need to hide her pregnancy because there's a doctor there, I'm sure everybody knows, the evil doctor of Auschwitz, right, was performing experiments on babies, Jewish babies, and their mothers during pregnancy whenever they were found out. And they were horrible experiments. So she doesn't want to be that, so she's trying to hide her pregnancy as best as she can. She's trying to make deals with the guards. There are the girls that are in her camp that are also trying to make deals with the guards. Eventually the baby is born in Auschwitz, and it kind of talks about what happens with the baby, what happens with everybody else, and then the ending. So this was really, really good. It being based on a true story, I mean, it's just so heartbreaking to like have to read what they went through. And then especially for somebody, going through all of that and it being a true story, and then have like a baby and a pregnancy being involved, that can be like, wow. I will say the ending is absolutely beautiful. This one it really did make me cry, a lot, just because, man, that's gotta be so, I couldn't even imagine. I could not even imagine, honestly. And I don't think any of us to this day would ever be able to imagine whatever happened in a concentration camp. But to be like that sick, that skinny, and now having to try to care for a fetus that you're trying to grow with like the poor rations that they were given. And then to have the baby in the middle of a camp where they could be killed, because you saw when you came into the camp, the right and the left, and the small children were always sent to be killed, and it was just like, dang. So this is a really, really, really tough read, but I thought it was really, really good. I thought it was, beautifully written. So I really, really like that. So that's going to be my number 3. Number 2 is going to be The Sleep Experiment. And I think that's the thing that this is not actually based on a true story. This is kind of sort of based on events that actually have happened before, but the rest of, it's all fiction. Like, this book is fiction, but it does talk about, things that actually happened. So this one was a little wild to me, if we're going to be honest. So, okay, here's what happens. So, there's a professor at this school, who is a psychologist, a very well-known, renowned psychologist. People really care about his work, and he's really interested in the work of sleep and dreams. Now, here's the part where true events happen, and it is mentioned in the book. During the Cold War, the Soviets did take some, I think it was 14 prisoners of war that were American, and said they would be let go if they were able to survive being kept awake for 2 weeks straight using the stimulant gas. If you guys know what happened, they all murdered themselves or murdered each other. They all just became in like this fit of rage, right? And this was like a huge thing that let everybody know that sleep is so important. So this professor thinks that the reason that we sleep, he has a lot of different theories, that we sleep because we were bored as cavemen, right? Like because we had to go hide in a cave to escape the enemies, and there was no lights, there was nothing to do. So they just slept out of boredom. And then how that has in turn turned into something else. Like, we've evolved to now we have to have sleep. But he believes that we can get back to where nobody would have to sleep again. So he wants to perform the exact same experiment that the Soviet Unions did. And he selected two or three. It's either two or... I think it was two or... Yeah, I think it may have been three. Students to help him with this project, and everybody would take separate shifts to watch them, and they would just like make notes about what's happening. So they pick these two I think they're Australian backpackers and say, we will pay you this much to do this experiment. And it was a very, very, very large lump sum. A very, very large. They also told them that you can leave at any time that you want, that if things start getting too serious, they would end the experiment, they would still get paid, all that, to lure them in. So they start the experiment, and it goes kind of through all the days. And it just kind of talks to you about like what they're doing, what their behavior's like, how they start off really normal, and then they start after a couple of days of no sleep and the stimulant gas, they start noticing that like the behavior is changing. And so they're bringing these thoughts up to this professor. Well, it does start getting very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Like a lot of like gruesome things are happening in there. And they're just not mentally okay. And instead of stopping the experiment, the professor keeps going. Of course, the students are trying to stop him from having this experiment, but of course he does not. And so it just kind of goes on as to what happens to the students, what happens to these two Australian backpackers in this, what happens to them in the end. It just really kind of goes in depth. And then at the end, it's kind of like, okay, well, there's like a court case and everything over this. And then at the end, you're just like, okay, well, that sucks. That really, like, nothing happened. But then there's a twist, and something does happen at the end. So I really liked this. I got this off Amazon. I did not think I was going to like this as much as I did, but I sure shit did. This was good. My number one book, and when I show this, I can hear so many people being like, everybody's raving about this. Okay, I know, but it is good. So this is the book Blvd. And if we're going to be honest, the sleep experiment and Blvd are very, very, they're not similar. They're just like very, very close to being like, I had to pick one to be number two, but I really liked both of them. So I just had to pick this one just to be first, just for the purpose of ranking, but they're very close. So this is Blvd. So this is a little bit of a wild one. I don't know what I was expecting because I've heard so much of the hype, but I was not expecting this. So, all right, so there's this author, all right, and she's just not very popular in like the book scene. She just likes to write. She doesn't want to do like meet and greets, book signings, things like that. She just wants to sit there and write, which isn't gaining her a lot of popularity. Well, one day her agent says, hey, there's somebody that would like to make an offer with you. We're going to have a meeting. And that is to go and write books for somebody else who has already started some books but can't finish them. And so at first she declines, but then she very much says, I need to take this because she's about ready to lose everything, because she's just not making enough as a writer to support herself. So she's like, I'm about ready to lose everything. I need to take this. Unfortunately, she does lose everything. She does get that eviction. She has nowhere to go, and the money hasn't come in for her yet. So she goes and stays with the author's family, and it turns out that the author was in a terrible car crash, and is now bedridden and unable to talk, speak, move, anything else like that. So she comes in and moves in with them, so that way she can start going through all of the data that this author, the one that's bedridden, had so she can finish the series for her. And with this, she earns $500,000 to do all of this. Well, she finds some written stuff by the author that looks more kind of like a diary. And so she starts reading it, and more things are starting to get revealed. And then some creepy stuff starts happening in the house with the author that is just completely and totally bedridden, right? In the end, there's like loops after loops at the end. That's like the part that's weird. I mean, it does, like, you start to read some of the like diary throughout the book, and you're just like enraged at like what's happening. Like, you're enraged. You may even cry. There is I will just say, trigger warning, there is talk of like child abuse, child death, things like that. So if that's not something for you, you won't like this. If you're able to like push through it to get to the end, I think that you will like that. I think you will like it, because it's not what it seems. So you are like, you're so enraged, and then, this girl that's like moved into the house is experiencing stuff that nobody else seems to believe her about. And then, then something happens, and then at the end, something else happens that I don't want to give away in case you guys want to read this book. If you guys don't ever want to read this book or any of these others and ever want to like know like what exactly happened because you have no interest in reading it, or you want to know what happens before you read it, just DM me over on Instagram. I'll tell you. So like two things just like happen at the very end where I'm just like, oh my God. Oh my gosh, like what is happening? Everybody, like, it's like nobody in the story is like innocent. Nobody is innocent in this story at all, except for the children, right? Like, that's it. Every single person in this story, there's something weird going on with all of them. And then once it reveals it at the end, your mind is just going like, but what really happened? So that is it for today's video. I hope that you all enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, click the little bell, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye.